Hello everyone and welcome back to the Ryan Retro channel. In today's video we're going to be looking at Nintendo Switch emulation on the Retroid Pocket 6 in both handheld mode and docked mode as well, because the Retroid Pocket 6 supports up to 4K 60Hz on the big screen. For today's test, all of the settings have been left as default, except for installing the Mr. Purple T23 turnip driver that we'll be using today to improve game compatibility, and I have enabled docked mode, which means we're playing at 1080p on the device itself rather than 720p. We're also going to be using high performance mode for this test, and the fan is set to smart mode so it can ramp up as much as it wishes. So let's jump into some games and see how well they run. Hopefully you can see the frame counter at the top left of the screen. I've made it as large as possible. If you can see it, you should see we have a very steady and solid 30 frames per second here in Animal Crossing New Horizons. And being the simple game that it is, there isn't really anything we can do in this game that's really going to tax it too much and make us lose too many frames. I've just loaded in a new island, and I actually restarted the game about 5 times because I hated the villages it gave me. So you might occasionally see some frame dips as it's loading in new scenery in the background that I've not seen before. But apart from that, we're going to get an easy, solid 30 frames per second here. It's even building shaders right now and still not really dipping below 30 very much, if at all. This is a game that's really nice and easy to run because it's such a simple game, but it's one that you can just come back to and play for hours on end. So really a game I enjoy, and one I'm very excited to test out on the TV in docked mode later in this video. Next up we have Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. This is a game that runs at 60 frames per second, and if you see that little moving circle on the screen, you can see we have full gyroscope controls here. So we're able to move around by rotating and shifting the device around, and then use that to select things. We also have full touchscreen support as well, so we can just touch the screen to move things. We have full support of everything you'd want to do on Nintendo Switch. Once again, this is a game that's not going to tax the system very much, and we're easily going to get a smooth and solid 60 frames per second here. It runs very, very nicely. Beautiful. Lovely experience. The next game today is FIFA 18. Long-time viewers of the channel will know this is my favorite game to play on the Retroid Pocket 5. This got me through some really long plane journeys from Asia to Europe. I love this game. Now there is a problem with this game. Some of the shadows and HUD elements are broken. That's unfortunately a problem on any kind of Yuzu fork on Android. Whether it's Eden that I'm using here, whether it's Yuzu, or any of the other variants. We just don't have the correct working HUD elements. But aside from that, the performance is fantastic. I look forward to playing in docked mode. Once again, you're gonna have to wait till later in the video to see that one, so get comfy. The performance here is no surprise because it ran great on the Retroid Pocket 5. But what makes the difference here is I have the analog stick up the top. This is very much an analog stick game. You have to control the players with the analog stick. And on the Retroid Pocket 5, that stick was down here, meaning my grip was like this, which is just not comfortable. Now that the stick is at the top, this is supremely comfortable, and I can see myself once again playing this game for hours on end. So thank you, Retroid, for giving us the choice of where we want the controls to be. Our next game is Pokémon Scarlet. This one has always given me problems before, and even here on the really solid 8 Gen 2 processor, I am noticing some kind of flickering in the background now and then. So it's not running flawlessly. We have no problems whatsoever maintaining 30 frames per second, even when building shaders, and I believe that by trialing a few different drivers, we can probably find one that doesn't have any flickering. And if you do find a great working combination, please be sure to upload that either to my website or to EmuReady. Both great resources for getting your games running. Let's just let Hugh Quackman teach this crocodile a lesson. Yes, go Hugh Quackman. Next up we have one of the hardest games to emulate on the Switch, which is Tears of the Kingdom. Here the frame rate fluctuates, usually around the mid to high 20s. Sometimes it seems to get a solid 30 frames per second. Sometimes it dips down quite a lot, especially when building in new shaders. But here I'm still at the beginning of the game, right at the beginning island, and that's because I'm still making my way through my save file on my Switch 2 of Breath of the Wild, and I want to finish that, or at least nearly finish that, before I get further into this game. So far the frame rate hasn't been very good for me, and it's been noticeably worse than the Retroid Pocket G2, so I do believe I'm going to need to try some different driver combinations for this one. So far I'm only using the Mr. Purple T23 driver. I will do lots of tests of other drivers in the future. This is just my initial Switch test video. It's by no means my most comprehensive one, as I only did get the Retroid Pocket 6 yesterday, but even with the fluctuating textures, some flashing textures as well, this is a promising first sign. It's noticeably better than the Retroid Pocket 5. The fan is ramping up quite a bit, but it's still nice and cool. It feels super comfortable to me, even without a grip, so I'm really excited to how well we can optimize this. And if you followed my channel last year with the Retroid Pocket 5, you'll know I put a lot of time, effort, and work into optimizing the Retroid Pocket 5 for the community. And I absolutely intend to do the same thing with the Retroid Pocket 6. Even though we've seen the chipset before with the Odin 2, the Mini, the Portal, the chipset's been around the block a few times, it will be my goal to make sure everyone gets the most out of their Retroid Pocket 6. So please subscribe if you'd like to see more of that over this coming year. Come back. Once again, we can use the gyroscopic controls here. Get him! So the performance here is quite inconsistent, but I have high hopes that we're going to get a good frame rate once we get the perfect driver for it sorted out, and I will try to get further into the game soon to show you how it runs. Also remember, we're running this at 1080p. It's perfectly reasonable to run this at 720p to get a better frame rate. Next up we have Breath of the Wild. This is one I expected to run pretty easily at 30 frames per second, but we seem to be stuck around 26 or 27. Maybe once all the shaders load in we will get 30 frames per second, but the thing that's actually bothering me about this is I'm noticing some kind of input lag, some kind of latency. Things just don't feel smooth. I've not experienced this on any other game I've tested on the Retroid Pocket 6, and I've not experienced this with any other handheld I've tested with this game, which at this point is very many, but there's just something a bit weird going on. When I move around and change direction, it feels like there's a bit of lag, and it almost feels like Link runs a little bit slowly, like he's running around in really heavy, soggy jeans. It might just be a case of still needing to build more shaders. It may be something that goes away by lowering the resolution to 720p or using a different driver. I'm just not sure yet, but I wanted to mention this because this is something I have never experienced before on any game, on any handheld. There's just some kind of latency when I try to move direction, when I try to do something. It's a little bit behind my movements, and I'm just not sure what's causing this. If anybody knows, please let me know, because this is the first time for me to experience this. Apart from that, it seems to be running pretty okay. The frame rate is in the high 20s. I think if we lowered this down to 720p by turning off docked mode, we would probably get 30 frames per second pretty solidly. This is again another game where the Retroid Pocket G2 in my testing did better than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 of the Odin 2 Portal. So it may be another case where the G2 is a little bit better than the 8 Gen 2. But that will require more testing to figure out. So these games mostly run pretty well at 1080p. In a few cases, like the Zelda games, you might want to lower it down to 720p to get a solid frame rate, but they are by no means bad frame rates. They're running pretty smoothly, and if I didn't have the frame rate counter up there staring me in the eyes, I probably wouldn't even notice it was less than 30 frames per second. It looks smooth to me. But now let's see how good this looks on the big screen in 4K 60. Of course, with titles like this that are slightly struggling at 1080p, there's no chance we're going to be able to run it at 4K, but let's see if we can run some of the easier, more lightweight games at 4K, and also let's just see how these games look on the TV at various scaled resolutions. We can use the official Retroid dock, which has a nice little movable USB-C port here, so you can line it up with however thick the device you're trying to connect is. For my Retroid Pocket 6, we're going to want to move that pretty much all the way up to the top. And this gives us a 4K 60 HDMI port, Ethernet for fast wired connection, 2 USB 3.0 ports on this side, 2 USB 2.0 ports on this side for connecting things like keyboards and mice, and a power delivery port for charging the dock and your device while you're playing. For the sake of this video, I'm actually going to be using my Anker power bank, so I'm actually not going to be using any mains power to power the Retroid Pocket 6 or the dock. So let's connect it to the TV and see how it looks. As you can hopefully see, it looks fantastic, and I'm able to connect one of my favorite controllers, the Nixie Warrior GameCube style controller, and it's all working great. We're playing at 1080p. I also just love how the Retroid Pocket 6 looks on the dock. It's almost like a display stand. So here we are playing at 1080p, easily getting 30 frames per second again like we did on handheld. The only issue right now is I haven't mapped anything on my controller to be the Android back or home button, so I am stuck in the game. You can download apps to do that, I've shown on my channel before, and I will make a follow-up video about docking the Retroid Pocket 6 soon. But for today, let's just test some other games on the big screen and see if it can handle 4K. Here's Little Prince Boy, Exhale of the Crazy up on the big screen, and it looks great. Once again, we're using 1080p, the same as on handheld, so the frame rate is exactly the same. I mean, I might be a little bit stupid, but in my head, playing on a bigger screen should result in a lower frame rate. Now, of course, that will not happen. There's just something in my head about big screen means big power needs. But that's not how it works, so you will get the same performance here as you will in handheld mode, just on a much larger screen. And at least for me, sat on the sofa quite far away with my quite poor eyesight, this looks incredible. And I wouldn't see a need for 4K myself, but for the sake of testing and for the sake of science, let's see how well this runs when we now raise the resolution up to 4K. So take a look at the frame rate at the top left corner. It's around 26 frames per second. And we know some other games like Animal Crossing and Captain Toad run at a perfect 30 and 60 respectively. Let's now see what happens when we change the resolution to 4K. 2 times resolution, 2160p, slow, we are being warned. Warning, resolution scaling to 2 times or higher is known to cause issues and may result in significant slowdowns of your device. Let's test it. Here we are in the game in 4K, and it is running pretty much in slow motion. The frame counter says we're getting around 14 frames per second, but we are definitely running at about half speed. This is not really going to be playable, at least for this game. It does look great, but with my quite poor eyesight, it doesn't actually look much different to 1080p, if I'm being honest. Let's just hit the old man a few times to teach him a lesson. Good dodging skills. So this is pretty much what I expected would happen. It's going to run slow, it's not going to run in a playable way, but it is running slightly better than I expected. 15 frames per second, about half speed, and it does look really, really great. So let's now try a game that's easier to run and see if we can get something working at 4K. This is Tennis in the Face, a game that I include in almost all of my videos because it's fun, it looks great, and it's so easy to run. The whole game is like 50 megabytes or something ridiculous. And as you can see, we have a solid 60 frames per second, even upscaled to 4K, no problems whatsoever. It looks nice and it runs perfectly. So very lightweight Switch games will be playable at 4K docked. A game like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker that was easily getting 60 frames per second at 1080p is again slowed down to a crawl here. It says 26 frames per second, but this is once again in extreme slow motion. So it seems that the warning we got about slowing down the device was indeed true. It doesn't seem that we're really going to be able to play anything in 4K, although I have to say, that looks incredible. If I can zoom into my screen and you can see the detail here, it looks phenomenal. But we just unfortunately don't have the power to run it on the Retroid Pocket 6. So this is a situation where you'd be better off with a Nintendo Switch 2. But that does of course cost twice the amount, cannot play nearly as many systems, and is also quite a bit bigger and less comfortable. So there are certainly compromises for both situations. So that is Switch gaming on the Retroid Pocket 6, both docked and undocked. What did you think about it? Please let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be making tons more Retroid Pocket 6 content every single day, so make sure you're subscribed for those, and I'm sure it won't be long before we're saying hello again.